There's so much buzz right now about AI and generative AI, and a lot of focus on how it's going to change the customer experience. But the logical place to start is really the employee experience. And we're going to be talking today about how you can completely transform the support agent experience with these cool new capabilities. And obviously, if you're going to transform the employee experience, you are transforming the customer experience. And a couple of weeks ago, I had an amazing opportunity to spend a day with Judi and Max and Krishna Raj Raja, the SupportLogic CEO. And we were talking about this huge inquiry volume that TSIA is receiving from our members around AI, and particularly Gen AI. And the general sentiment is, you've been talking about the potential for AI for a decade, and what we really want to know is, what are the exact use cases to leverage this technology? What are the features that are available today that we can buy off the shelf and put to use? What are the business impacts? Where's the ROI coming from? And if we look at everything that's out there, how do we start building a roadmap to crawl, walk, run? We can't boil the ocean and bring in everything at one time. So where's the logical place to start? And we're going to be diving into all of those topics today. You're going to see some real world available technology that SupportLogic customers are using. And hopefully you can start creating a roadmap of how you can start putting those into your operation. So when you think about building that roadmap, I think it's kind of helpful to look at how employees spend their time. And this is some data from our knowledge management survey that shows on average what percentage of support technician time is spent across discovery problem ID, researching the problem, collaborating, applying the resolution, and documenting the case. And your numbers are going to vary depending on hardware or software, the complexity of your technology, et cetera. But I think that this is really a helpful place to start. So if you're seeing that the largest percentage of time is spent in one of these particular quadrants, then you should really be looking for some technology that's going to help you really streamline and reduce that. So I think we're going to be talking about some various AI and Gen AI capabilities today that are going to touch every one of these categories. So ultimately, really streamlining the agent experience, which of course is going to reduce effort and reduce resolution time for customers as well. The final thing I want to mention is our inquiry volume around translation capabilities has really been going up. And I know that during the pandemic and with the current economic slowdown, we're seeing tech companies are moving into a lot of new geographies, new countries that they have not been in before, looking for additional revenue sources. And that comes with a lot of language requirements. And this is some data showing just the average number of languages supported by support channel, but this is just the average. And some of the numbers in the benchmark are really, really high. And people are struggling with translation tools because you may want to start with, like Google Translate's a great tool for you to talk to your friends on Instagram. But if you've only got a 92 or 93% accuracy rate, that's great for casual conversations. But when you're dealing with complex technology, the missing 5 to 7% can cause a hard down situation. So we're going to be looking at also the capabilities in Gen AI to start automating this translation and really help you scale your operations without necessarily having native language speakers from every country in the globe. So enough intro from me. I'd like to introduce our first guest speaker and one of the best people in the entire support and services industry, my friend Judi Platz, Chief Customer Officer for SupportLogic. Judi, great to have you back on another webinar.
Hi, John. Great to be with you. Thank you for those kind words. You're one of my favorite people in the industry as well. So thank you. And thank you, Max, for joining us. We haven't been together on a webinar with John, you and I, so this will be fun today. So what a topic. John, you and I have talked about the agent experience for years. And, the fact that we as support organizations have to focus here. It's interesting, MIT just conducted a study on AI for customer support and looking at the impact of generative AI on productivity. And none of this is going to come as a surprise, but these are some recent numbers. And I think that we can all take a moment and look at these. 14% increase in the number of issues resolved per hour, 9% less time spent per chat, 14% more chats handled per hour. But I think the one that's most intriguing is the 9% lower attrition among agents with AI than agents without AI. And this is a key area and something that's really been out there for a while, which is employees are leaving companies, support organizations specifically. There's the old line that they leave because of their managers. We know that. But really, one of the things we found, and John, you're still sitting on the research, I believe, which is they leave because of the tools and technology that they have or don't have. I want to go where the cool kids are. I want to go to where you are helping me be a better version of me. I'm not using legacy tools. I'm not using things that are just there that provide no value to me as an agent or ultimately to my customer. And we know this, agents who stay, right? And whether or not they're choosing to make support a career, or whether they're staying in the company because they ultimately want to go to product or they want to go to services, those agents are happier. They know the products, unlike a lot of members of the company. They have higher job satisfaction, we know that. And one of the things that, of course, we're looking at is how long does it take to onboard new agents when other agents leave? So, this right there, if we can be cutting support attrition, which has been rising and rising over the years, that would be one of the most amazing impacts that we can make on the industry by having our agents empowered with AI tools. So for here, one of the things that is really important, each of these experiences, especially in the middle row, product experience, brand experience, agent experience, all of those are heavily impact the customer experience. But the support experience there at the bottom is lifting and taking care of, and one might say holding on its shoulders, all of these other experiences. And I think we should take a step back. And those of you that have followed any of the research that I've done in my career, I have always talked about the fact that I think we as a support organization, support industry, we over-rotated. We didn't do it on purpose. We didn't do it with bad intent. It was accidental, I think, to some degree. But we over-rotated to the customer experience. And in doing so, we impacted the support experience, the support agent experience in a negative way. And now is the time, and I know a lot of organizations have already started to adjust that rotation, but I think we all have to focus and decide whether or not we did. And if we did, let's take that step back now, and let's focus on the agent experience. And the agent experience being part of the overall support experience is so important here. Support experience, Krishna just said this at our conference a few weeks ago. Support experience lifts all boats. That experience has the ability to impact all three buckets in that middle row. We know that. And we know today, especially with what's going on in the industry, but here in this webinar, we're going to talk about how we can use AI to solve that bottom row, which will just naturally float up into the next two rows. So excited to talk a bit more about where we're going here. One of the things that we know in the industry, we're transitioning to a hybrid model. Assisted support is everything. It's the agents, it's the managers, it's the SMEs, it's the swarm leads, it's everybody that's involved in the touching of a customer physically, right? We used to talk about it being assisted and unassisted. Unassisted would be your self-service and the things that you could do yourself as a customer. You still needed people creating the content in that assisted manner, but you didn't need to interact with live agents. But today, the other form of the hybrid is the autonomous. It's chat automation, it's ticket automation, it's serving content to you without you even needing to type in necessarily what you're looking for. And I would say that's similar to the self-service push that we saw, and I'm going to date myself here, 20 years ago. We saw agents start to hold up their arm and not want to go on that journey with us. The self-service journey and the knowledge management journey was scary for our agents. They felt immediately that it was going to help them lose their jobs quickly. If they took all the knowledge that they had in their head and they put it into a knowledge management repository, then what good were they? Would we still need them? And I think, John, you've written about this topic and talked about this topic 20, 25 years. You know this best. We as leaders have to do a better job right now in helping our support agents in this new journey, because it's up to us to reassure them that it's actually AI in what the capacity we're talking about is not going to cost their job. It's actually going to make their jobs more interesting. It's going to make their jobs more compelling. It's going to make their jobs more challenging in the ways that they want. But it's not going to, quote unquote, take their jobs away. It's going to take the parts of their jobs away that they never really liked to begin with, if we're honest about that. And I think as leaders, it's definitely up to us to help with this transformation. So let's talk about how we're going to help. How are we as leaders going to help? How are we as agents going to have this experience? What is that going to look like? So in the hybrid model that we just talked about, we talked about things like reduced firefighting, improving skills, better job satisfaction. That's what we need to promise to the agents. That's what we need to build and help the agents see. And how are we going to do that? What are the tools that we're going to use? So for instance, for firefighting, we're going to have prioritization assist. We're going to help agents prioritize their cases using AI instead of them having to remember every case and every detail of every case or every incoming comment from a customer. There's no way to do that. Prioritization assist will do that for them. Things like improving skills. We are in a learning culture today in our world, unlike we've ever been before. People want to be better and keep learning new things. So let's use something like response assist or translation assist to help in that area. Great way to improve agent skills. Better job satisfaction. How about that last piece of a case that none of us ever want to do, but we have to do it before we close the case? Case summarization, right? The old thing about, the job is never finished until the paperwork is done. That's what case summarization comes up to. Nobody ever wants to do that at the very end. And yet the clock is ticking. You have to close the case, but that summarization needs to be there. So that's another tool that we can use quickly, easily to improve the agent experience. So we'll talk a little bit about each one of these. My favorite, I think you know it based upon the smile in the last slide, case summarization. One of the most complex things, one of the things that I, as a manager in support or director, a leader in support, it's the thing I need most. If I'm getting ready to go into a call, I need that case summarized. So I understand if I'm talking to a customer, but I also need it summarized at the end so that we can all learn from it. Are we going back to product, asking product for changes? Is customer success looking at it and they need the high-level summary? It helps us get to the root cause quicker and faster. It applies consistency, improves our efficiency, and the best part, it reduces training time. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this topic. So rather than read through the entire case, an agent, or let's say the case was transferred while an agent was on vacation and it's going to a new agent, the case summarization, I can dive right in the moment I receive that case, and I can begin working on it. This evens out your team. Let's talk about transferring cases across the globe. The follow the sun model that we all live in. this is one of the areas that used to hurt us the most, because to transfer the case, you needed to put a summary in every day, and you might see that case multiple times a week because it was being transferred. And every time you saw it, you had to summarize it. This right here is probably one of the biggest game changers that we're going to see, from AI when it comes to case handling for agents. The next, Response Assist. It's a workflow designed to help agents solve customer issues with accuracy and empathy. Users draft the customer response, and then the use of a tailored large language model to automatically set the tone and organize the message. Max, I can't wait. I think you're going to demo this during your portion, but this is perfect. It can talk about what kind of tone do you want to have? Do you want to be prescriptive? Do you want to be friendly? Do you want to be formal? Do you want to be a little firmer because you're not getting what you need from the customer? Maybe the customer's not giving you the information, and yet it just keeps bouncing back to you. So Response Assist, I think, is one of those areas to make it way easier for agents to stay on brand with the type of communication that the company and that the support org supports, and really help drive a tone that matches the customers or changes the customers if that's what's necessary as well. And the next one, Prioritization Assist. This is the one that we mentioned early on too, being a big game changer. How do I know when I walk in the morning what the most important thing is? I might do it based upon the customer name. I might do it based upon the severity of the case. There's different ways. Maybe my manager or my team lead helps me do this. And so that's good. And those are good ways to happen. But there's a lot lurking in a case queue that agents don't see and don't know. Doing something like Prioritization Assist will help the engineers use sentiment detection. It assigns an attention score and a sentiment score to every single case in their queue. These scores can then help rank the cases in order that they need attention based off those predictive signals that are out there. This one for me is really key, because when we're talking about the agents and them walking in every day with a smile to a job that is so demanding and full of problems, again, this is a way to help take that stress off of them. Just make it easy. Show up, look at my queue. I didn't know there was something lurking in case number 456, but you've told me there is, and now I'm going to prioritize that case, because those sleeper cases are usually the ones that come and bite us the worst. So again, another great way to use AI. So Max, I'm excited to turn it over to you. You're going to show us examples of each of these, so take it away.
Thank you, Judi. I think there's actually one more slide that we wanted to cover before getting to that, the translation assist. So if we want to...
Translation assist. I'll take that one too. Thanks, Max.
No problem.
Translation assist, you could do it too, but I'll take it. Real-time bi-directional language translation. And again, John mentioned this in the beginning, the amount of course, globalization. But think about the days when you were hiring and you needed a dedicated team in a location because of the language. That's still happening for a large number of support organizations today. We don't need that to happen, actually. Using something like Translation Assist will allow support organizations to build global teams without needing to be necessarily in the country or to hire direct for that language. This, again, will allow organizations to respond with confidence, which we know we need. We just talked about that in the previous slide, but also to expand our reach. I remember most recently having to have a team based in Japan because I needed that language. And if I had had this tool, then it would have changed what was 18-month-long conversations about building out the team, scaling the team, hiring, and all of that. It's 18 months we could have had back in our life immediately and been able to service and support and stand up a support organization faster to support countries that, were growing and emerging for us. So Max, you kept me on task. Thank you for that. Now I'm going to turn it over to you for a demo.
Wonderful. Thank you, Judi. And thank you, John, for the intro. So I'm Max. I'm a customer success manager here at SupportLogic. I'm super excited to take you through a demo of some of the generative AI capabilities that you'll be able to leverage within your support organization and as a support agent or engineer to provide a better experience to your customers and also just have a better experience as an employee. So I'm going to share out my screen and let's dive right in. Okay. So is this visible?
It was to begin with, Max. Now we're seeing something different.
Got it.
There we go.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Right there. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, so to start, so this is SupportLogic's Agent SX platform. The SX stands for support experience because our focus, as you saw in the earlier slides, is very much on how support experience lifts all buckets, right? We talked about how it impacts brand experience, product experience, employee experience, all of these different things. But it's really intended as a tool for agents and engineers. That's what it's for. I've always fundamentally believed that agents and engineers work in support predominantly also because they actually enjoy helping others. But it's often they need the tools and they need the assistance in order to be able to do that. They're often in so many distinct tools and they're not leveraging some of these AI capabilities that would enable them to do their job not just better than they do it right now, but just more effectively across the board. So we talked about a few different things earlier, right? But looking at the SupportLogic, the Agent SX UI here, you'll see that what you're provided with is actually probably very familiar to any of these support folks who are watching this. You have your backlog listed here. You have your unassigned cases on the left. You have a list of the cases that are currently assigned to you as an agent or engineer here in the middle. And you have a number of things on the right here, reminders, as well as notes that you can set for yourself. But the key here is how do you leverage generative AI in working with your customers, in responding with your customers, in driving a case towards resolution? So let's take a look at some of the cases that we see right here. So okay. So the first thing we want to do is talk about prioritization assist, right? Judi was discussing how agents and engineers typically, and support organizations typically, have used a variety of different, say, you might say metadata factors to prioritize their cases. They might be looking at severity. They might designate something for priority. You might just have specific customers that you focus on first, right? You might speak with your manager. Your manager might help you with this prioritization. But one of the missing parts of this is how do you leverage the customer sentiment, the true voice of the customer, to help prioritize your cases based on the actual need, to prevent them from spiraling out of control, to prevent escalations from happening. So SupportLogic leverages several key things in order to help you accomplish that. And while we wait for this to load for just a second, you'll see here in the center view here, you have a number of options for prioritization. And the ones I really want to talk about are attention score and sentiment score. So SupportLogic uses natural language processing to extract the voice of the customer, to highlight specific signals in what the customer is saying to you that gives you an idea of their emotional state, right? Now, you're not always able to read through all these cases in real time to figure out which ones you should focus your time on. But if SupportLogic is highlighting frustration, confusion, all of these different NLP signals that are detected on the cases, those get rolled up into a score, which you can then leverage to prioritize which cases you're going to focus on based on not just the emotional state of the customer, but by the need of the customer, the severity of that issue as defined in the signals that we're detecting on that case. So sentiment score is based strongly on how is the customer feeling about this case? Are they frustrated? Are they confused? Are they struggling extensively with how it's going, right? With a very serious issue. Attention score leverages a combination not just of the signals that are detected on the case, such as the customer expressing that they have a critical issue, that their system is down perhaps, they're asking for a call, they're asking for a follow-up, but it also looks at things like response times, the number of conversations back and forth on the case, and all of that rolls into calculating a sentiment score and an attention score. I can leverage both of these for prioritization, and with sentiment score, it starts at a neutral point of about 70, and then it steadily works its way down. And as it gets lower and lower, the customer is becoming more and more frustrated. And maybe the case is worthy of a second look. Maybe it needs to be dealt with quicker, focused on ahead of certain other cases. Attention score, as mentioned, leverages a lot of the other things like the number of responses, the response times, in addition to the NLP signals, in addition to the voice of the customer. You can use them both for prioritization, but attention score, as the score goes up, that means the case needs more and more attention. The customer is expressing urgency. They need a response. Their system is down, something pretty intense. So leveraging these allows you to quickly jump on these cases as an agent or engineer and focus on what you need to immediately, rather than just leveraging a list of cases by customer designated priority or by when the first case opened or when the last one came, when the last response came in, right? Many cases will just make their way towards resolution at your typical pace, but then there's certain ones that can get out of control very quickly, and SupportLogic's AI and ML will help you find those and focus on them quicker than you might otherwise. Okay, so looking at here a little bit closer, let's drill into one of these specific cases, and let's leverage some of those generative AI capabilities even further. So I'm going to scroll in here. Let's grab this case right here, case 1190. The customer is the Northeast USA Warranty Co. I'm going to click into this. We're going to bring up a detailed case view where you can respond to the case, add internal notes, and leverage some of these generative AI capabilities that we've been talking about. So for this one, what I'm going to start with here is let's talk about the one that Judi was most excited about, the case summarization, right? What I can actually go ahead and do is, let's say I want to add an internal note summarizing what's happened in this case so far. I can click Add Internal Note here, and you'll see right here where I would type into the note itself. I have a little light bulb in the bottom left corner of the internal note. If I click on that, you'll see I have the option to summarize the case. I'm going to go ahead and select that. The AI will now curate the response. Give it a few seconds to generate it. The AI thinks fast, but takes a little bit to generate it, as you can see. But let's just give it another moment. All right, there we go. Okay, so what we can actually see here is the AI generated a summary of the case and bulleted out the key notes from the case itself, right? So we can see here key information. It tells you the subject of the case, a variety of other bullets talking about the issue, how it was reported, right? What was the priority on it? Was there an engineering request tied to it, right? So did you link a JIRA to this case because there was a defect associated with it? All of that gets summarized up into the case in the summary. It'll also point out the specifically important bullets of what the customer said to you in the case, as well as how you as the agent replied to the case. So as you can see, I'm getting a bulleted list of everything that happened without having to read back through the entire case and grab those out via my notes and add them in here and generate that summary, which can take a really extended amount of time. Now, what I just showed you is summarizing a case for an internal note, but you could also create a summary and send it to the customer. That's another option that you have with this. However, when doing that, maybe you're not going to create such a formal bulleted list like this, but you do have the option then. If I click the light bulb again, you'll see I have some additional options. If I click these three dots, you can see I can now change the formality and tone of the summary itself. So just to give you an example of what that would look like, let's say I want to change the tone to, let's say, empathetic. So let's give it a second there. And it will adjust this to a tone that I might use for directly responding to the customer if I wanted to generate a summary for them. There we go. So you'll see here, now this has been formulated into the way I might respond directly to a customer if I wanted to provide them a summary at the end of the case. You'll see it took those main points, put them into a paragraph style format, into a response style format, and with an empathetic tone. So now this is just one of the tones that I can use here for summarizing this case and potentially responding to the customer, right? So this is actually not just case summarization, but at this point it's potentially response assist, right? So let's actually jump over to another case, and I'm going to drill into response assist a little bit more. I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to open up case number 1215. It's in here somewhere. Here we go. All right. So once again, we have the detailed view here. And Wade Smith, as we see in this case, who's facing an issue with the fan in his dryer overheating. So I need to respond to Wade. And I'm going to use generative AI to adjust the response after I create it, to change the tone, make it maybe a little bit more formal or empathetic. So let me go ahead and hit reply here. I'm going to put in the response my initial response that I intend to send to Wade. And so you see here, I have, hi Wade, I'm sorry that you're facing trouble with this issue. Product shouldn't be having a problem so soon after you've purchased it. Now I have the option, once again, to click the little the light bulb here. I can go ahead and adjust the formality or the tone, right? Or both. So I'm going to go ahead and select formal here, and it's going to adjust my response to be slightly more formal with the customer. All right, here you go. So now you see it says, Dear Mr. Wade, I express my sincere regret for the trouble you are undergoing with this matter. It is indeed unexpected that the product should be encountering issues so shortly after its purchase. We are prepared to detach a skilled technician to address and hopefully resolve the complication at hand. So you'll see very, very quickly, the response took the response assist, it took what I had written and adjusted it to a more formal tone that I could use with the customer. But I can adjust that even further. Maybe I look at this response, it's not exactly what I want to use. I can go with something a little bit more direct. If I select that, it's now going to update the response again. There we go. A couple of additional changes here made to this. So there's a lot you can do here, right? We can go back to, let's say, personable. And this is all happening in real time, relatively quickly, using generative AI. Let's give it a second here to finish loading. There we go. So you see, now it made it a bit more personal. It expanded it out a little bit. Started with, I trust this message finds you well. Extend my deepest apologies for the trouble you're experiencing. So you can use this to quickly adjust your tone and how you engage with your customers. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you, which is really cool, is language translation. So I'm going to open up a different case now. Go ahead and close that one out. This time, now I'm going to select case 1216, which is this one right here. And let me show you some examples of language translation. So you can actually see here we have a pre-sent message that was already in this case that was listed in French here. Now I'm going to put in some responses in real time in other languages, but you can actually see here there's a translation right below translating this message that was in French into English, right? But now, okay, this was pre-populated. It was already in here. Let's look at how the generative AI handles this in real time. So I'm going to go ahead and hit reply here. And let's say for our purposes we're going to translate Japanese. So I'm going to paste in a Japanese response. And what you can see is instantaneously, it translates the Japanese language into English here. So what that means is that I can, even if I'm not a Japanese speaker, if the customer sends the message in Japanese, the generative AI can translate it immediately for me so that I can proceed. So really cool, right? Let me show you one additional language here that just to kind of to show the power of generative AI. Let me cancel this particular draft that I had done. I'll go ahead and hit reply. This time, I'm going to grab a Spanish message. And there you go. I have a Spanish message here, translated from Spanish directly into English. Didn't even take a fraction of a second. So these are some of the cool things that are possible with generative AI. Case summarization, prioritization of cases, response assist, and language translation. And this is just scratching the surface. There's so much more we can do, and there's so much more to come. So thank you for letting me take you through this demo. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to John.
Well, great to see actual capabilities in action. If I can just go back to the case summarization, I feel that so many companies are struggling with knowledge management programs because they're relying on those case summaries sometimes to fuel the knowledge base. And tools like yours, which are analyzing case history to identify who the experts are to assign things to, we all know that those case summarizations may be required, so people do them, but they're really bad. And I think this is really going to be a game changer because it's really going to help with the knowledge management piece. It's going to make it easier to be creating content for the self-service website. And as you said, Judi, certainly whoever follows after them is going to have a much easier time because they have an accurate depiction of what happened. So this is not a feature I have seen elsewhere, and I'm very excited about it. So we do have a couple of minutes left. I know we've got questions in queue. Vanessa, you want to take us through some audience Q&A?
Perfect. Yes. Thanks so much, John. And just as a reminder, if you would like to submit a question, please enter in the Ask a Question box at the top left corner of the webinar player, and we'll get through as many questions as we can here. I'm going to jump right in, and our first question comes from George. And they say, it looks like Salesforce is expanding their generative AI capabilities. How does this compare?
I can take that one for the team. Having come from Salesforce, and I was a customer of SupportLogic, we use this tool at Salesforce. So, the good thing about it is we SupportLogic is live on 5, as we say. We sit on top of 5 CRM systems. Of one of them is in fact Salesforce. And so the tools that we have are designed to be domain specific. They're built for support. And I think that's what's important, that domain expertise that we have here at SupportLogic, not only in our tools, but in our personnel, is really what is setting apart SupportLogic and making us the first ever support experience platform. So, the fact that an organization such as Salesforce has given us their trust in using our tool, I think says a lot for what we have in our own tooling. Great question.
Okay, our next question comes from Tamara, and they say, how are these products priced, and what infrastructure do I need to be able to use them?
That's a great question. So I'm going to start with one word: affordably. We are affordably priced. And that is really what's important in today's world with the economy that we're in and for support organizations. We offer usage-based pricing, so it's very easy and economical for customers to get started with SupportLogic and use pieces of the product that you value and do that based upon usage-based. Our tool Agent SX also plugs into the Salesforce Service Cloud. So from a customer experience, no additional, if you will, overhead there for infrastructure is required. And again, having been a customer before I joined SupportLogic, the onboarding experience is fast, it's pleasurable, it's low lift for the customers. SupportLogic takes on a majority of that work. And between our onboarding team and our customer success and support team, it's very easy for a customer to very quickly see value and start to use our products.